Hello everyone, my name is Emilia from Couch English, channel dedicated to practical business English. Have you ever heard about quiet quitting? Probably you have heard about it, either because that term is pretty popular if we're talking about the business trends nowadays. So you might have read some article, listened to some podcast connected with quiet quitting, or even if you haven't heard that term itself, probably you met that situation in practice. You either face that on your own, or maybe you're even facing it right now, or some of your peers, some of your colleagues, some of your friends are experiencing right now or were experiencing in the past also quiet quitting. So, what is that? If we are talking about this phenomenon, quiet quitting is the situation that we are silently, quietly, step by step withdrawing from our professional engagement. So that's the situation in which we still work in the company, in the same organization, but we are not anymore so much engaged, motivated, and committed. We don't dedicate so much time and effort. We don't dedicate so many competences, skills, support to the others as we used to do it in the past. That's why it's called quiet quitting, that we're just quietly withdrawing from going beyond and above our standard scope of the responsibilities and role. There can be definitely several reasons why we do it. I would say that especially during pandemic we could experience that situation that more and more people they were experiencing quiet quitting. I'm sure that this trend was pretty popular also in the past, although maybe I wouldn't then call it a trend. But that kind of phenomenon, it was still, of course, experienced. We could meet it in different kind of organizations, companies in the past. But I believe that during pandemic, it was simply more intense. That's why I would relate mainly to one of the reasons why, in my opinion, my personal opinion, this quiet quitting is becoming more and more popular. I even have that kind of the thought that probably it will become a standard. It will be something completely normal and typical in the organizations and among different kind of the people. I would say that something what we could experience during the pandemic especially was the situation when we started changing our priorities. We started changing our values. And even if before pandemic, a lot of people had that kind of the thought that they have to design their career paths. They have to develop. They had very ambitious professional plans. I'm pretty sure that a lot of us, we started facing a little bit different reality because we simply noticed that life is quite brittle, that professional life it's not the only thing which can bring us success and which can bring us happiness, and that's why we started redesigning again our priorities and values. We started noticing that there is also family, there are our friends, there are our hobbies and passions. We can face a lot of different kind of the standards and situations in our life which can bring us also joy and happiness. And that's the reason why a lot of us we stopped dedicating, I would say, so much time and effort and contribution to our professional life. And that's the reason why I said that, in my opinion, it can become a standard. Because I'm not sure, again, this is just my personal opinion, if this quiet quitting is in fact something negative. Probably, of course, from the point of view of the employer, of course, yes, because people are not so much dedicated anymore. They are not performing so much. They are not willing to, for example, dedicate their private time to stay overtime at the weekend. So that's the reason why, from the company point of view, probably, of course, it's not so positive. But on the other hand, if we think about us as human beings, as people, again, I'm pretty sure that this quiet quitting, it can bring a lot of good to our lives simply. Quiet quitting is also connected with few more aspects like stress out, burnout, and simple situation in which we are overwhelmed, tired, or even exhausted. Probably I shouldn't say it's like a simple situation, but the situation in which we feel tired, exhausted, because we have too many tasks, too many projects. We're always in a hurry. We always have to perform, or even overperform. And that's the reason why, at some certain point, even physically, I would say, not only mentally, we can't deliver anymore so much. We can't engage so intensively in our work. And that's the reason why this quiet quitting happens, because we have to have some kind of the balance. And as long as for several years we have been working for the company, for companies, so eagerly, we're dedicating so much effort, so many skills, we're developing all the time, we're performing, we're having very proactive approach. At some point, everybody has some kind of the limits, and it can happen that we're going to suffer some mental or even physical consequences in terms of our health, which will show us that maybe it's time to start changing something. And if we think about those aspects, so if we think about changing our priorities, changing our values, and even suffering from that kind of physical or mental consequences, that's one of the main reasons why probably this quiet quitting can happen. Of course, there are many more aspects connected with quiet quitting, because it can also happen that we simply do not have power or energy anymore to dedicate ourselves to work. It can be connected with different reasons, not only stress out, not only burnout. It can be also connected with the fact that we don't see any more sense or meaning of our work. We can observe that, for example, our managers are not so much dedicated to managing us, probably to performing their duties, to making sure that we're going to have that feeling that we can still develop in the company. So again, different kind of the reasons. Among the others, if I already said about stress out, about burnout, or about being overwhelmed, I'm sure that one of the reasons, or one of the consequences, maybe even, why we can experience those physical and mental consequences and implications can be connected with too high expectations. And everything what I'm saying right now is definitely overlapping, because if all the time I have to overperform, I have to deliver, if all the time I have very high targets, I have to deliver more, at some point again there will be some kind of the limitation, and I won't be able to deliver more. So that's about the underlying reasons connected with quiet quitting. If we have a look at quitting from the point of view of employer, definitely we can somehow recognize, observing our employees, why that particular situation happens. I would say that definitely one of the most typical aspects or criteria by which we can recognize that somebody is quietly quitting the organization. So, still, again, not quitting really the company, but just not performing so much and not being engaged so much as that person used to be. I would say that one of the most tangible ways how we can recognize that somebody is quietly quitting the organization, it's definitely lower performance. That one, in fact, can happen, but not necessarily, because we can also experience that kind of the situation that somebody is still delivering, let's say, 90 or 100% of their performance, but at the same time that person, for example, will be not engaging anymore in some kind of projects, in different kind of initiatives. The person will be, for example, isolating themselves a little bit more from the team, from the leader, from the company and company's events. So still can perform on the same level as it used to be, but the person will be not so proactive anymore. So performing the standard scope of responsibilities, yes. Delivering the results from the standard scope of responsibilities, yes. But if it is about some additional involvement, engagement, if it is about participation in some additional initiatives, it may happen that somebody who is quietly quitting will not follow that kind of the initiatives. It can also happen that we're going to recognize that somebody is quietly quitting because of the behaviors of that person. So somebody used to attend meetings with quite proactive and active, of course, also approach. But right now we can observe that this person is not participating in discussions, is not sharing their ideas, or somebody used to support others, and right now this person doesn't do it anymore. That's why, if we want to recognize by behaviors, not only by performance, the symptoms of this quiet quitting, we have to observe the difference. And that's also something what is really important. That managers, leaders, they have to be constantly alerted. They have to check, am I behaving in exactly the same way? Am I, of course, uh, effective the same as I used to be, but still those behaviors, I would say, they will be like much more important. So if there is going to be the situation that the change in my behaviors is going to be noticed, that's probably some slight signal to my manager that something is happening, something changed, and it would be perfect for the manager to talk with me and just check if I'm doing well or not, if everything is okay or not. Is it maybe some single situation or like more permanent one, and the manager has to react? I would even say that from the point of view of the performance, it might be even too late. So if it happens that the manager will finally see that I'm not performing on the same level as I used to be, most probably that's just the result of this quiet quitting. Because at the beginning, I will be not participating so much in the meetings, I will be not so active, I will be not socializing so much with people, and I will not participate in all these additional initiatives. And only at the very end, finally, it will impact also my standard scope of responsibilities, my KPIs, my results, and my outcomes. That's why I would say that despite the fact that lower performance is said to be the most important result or symptom of quiet quitting, in my opinion, it's definitely too late if we're going to see, oh, somebody's underperforming, maybe something happened. Because at that stage, probably the person is already suffering from burnout, stress out, is already so demotivated or disengaged that it's too late to do something. So, constant observation, changing, seeing the changes in the behaviors, that's something what is much more important. I would say that leaders, they also have to be more proactive in prevention when we are talking about this quiet quitting, because they should constantly monitor the workload. It's connected with the fact that most probably employees, even if they feel that it's a little bit too much and they are simply overwhelmed with the tasks, of course, some of them, they will very simply come to the manager and say, no, too many tasks. Please change something. I'm not able to handle that. But there will be also that kind of the employees who will say nothing, and they will not report to the manager that maybe some of the tasks shouldn't be done, or maybe some of the tasks shouldn't be assigned to them anymore because simply they cannot manage, or they are not so effective, or this is right now that kind of the moment in their professional life, in their private life, that they are not able to manage all the tasks and duties. So the managers, they have to be very careful and notice, okay, right now I can see that the employee has maybe too many tasks, or this is probably the right moment to delegate that task to somebody else, or maybe to introduce some kind of optimization. And instead of delegating and assigning some new tasks for this optimization, just let the employee work a little bit slower, which doesn't mean ineffectively. It just means that the manager has to create some space for the employees to make sure that they will be able to just take a breath, I would even say. One more thing, which is extremely important when we talk about quiet quitting and the methods of prevention, is related to leaders themselves. Because I would say that very often we are talking about expectations towards the leaders. They have to be supportive, they have to be inclusive, they have to take care of well-being of the employees, but leaders are also employees. And I'm pretty sure that if leaders are not going to be relaxed, they're not going to be rested, and they will feel overwhelmed, then how they can take care of the employees, and how they can even notice that employees are overwhelmed as well. So it's a little bit like with the parents. First, taking care of ourselves, and only then we can check how the employees are doing. So different kind of things connected with prevention and of course managing this daily quiet quitting. And one more thing, which I would add probably almost at the end of today's podcast, is connected with changing business approach to that idea of engagement and performance. That's why at the very beginning I said that I have like my private or personal opinion connected with that quiet quitting, which in my opinion is going to become a standard. Because I have to say that as the natural workaholic, I right now see huge benefits of this quiet quitting. And I have that kind of deep belief right now that if I were to dedicate 8 hours of my working time to the company, if I were not to respond emails after my working hours, if I could simply not participate in some social initiatives or additional projects, it wouldn't mean that I'm not engaged. It would mean that I simply realize my standard scope of responsibilities. And as the person who was always overperforming, I think that I would really love to experience that kind of the situation. That's why I think that companies, that leaders, they have to understand a little bit better that idea of engagement, dedication, and commitment, and understand that sometimes if employees do not want to develop, they do not want to climb up the career ladder, they will not participate in some social initiatives, and even they will perform on the level of 90% of the target or 80% of the target, it's really probably okay. Therefore, again, I would say that what we need to do is to redesign a little bit the expectations, of course, both of the employers and of the employees, and think that probably nowadays we have to be a little bit more aware that this professional life and private life, they are simply overlapping and they really have to be balanced. There is one more idea which is strongly connected with quiet quitting, and that's the idea connected with quiet hiring. If you haven't heard about that, probably I can invite you already to our another podcast during which I'm going to continue that idea of quiet quitting and smoothly move to quiet hiring. If you liked our podcast, of course, I can definitely invite you to subscribe our channel. You can find there different kind of podcasts, webinars, some shorts. So everything what is connected with business, with the current trends, with the practical idea, of course, of running business in different kind of the spheres, I can definitely invite you to follow us. Thank you very much.